Hello, everybody. We are the first generation in human mankind with the potential to end poverty globally. We are, at the same time, the last generation in mankind with the potential to prevent an irreversible damage to this planet in terms of global warming, resource depletion, and biodiversity for decades, if not centuries. We know all this. Why isn't it happening? Some say it has to do with bad governance. Some say it has to do with the lack of innovative technology. Others say it's simply too expensive. I think a lot has to do with the design of the financial system itself. And this is what I would like to discuss with you here and now. In September 2015, world leaders signed up for a roadmap in New York with 17 so-called Sustainability Development Goals, SDGs, aimed at improving humanity, the planet, wealth, peace, and global partnership. Most of these goals are so-called global common goods, like cleaning air, protecting biodiversity, alleviating poverty. A common global good is not exclusive. It should be accessible to and enjoyed by everyone. And each of these goals has enough scientific evidence, enough technological know-how, and enough political consensus to be achieved. And each of these goals should be valid for the entire planet, north and south, and east and west, and local and global. However, these goals are not cheap. In fact, we're talking about a $5 trillion bill every year over the next 15 to 20 years. Where does the money come from? How are we currently financing? How are we currently funding and managing such projects? The conventional way of dealing with such projects is simply redistributing money. This arrow behind me reflects the entire world economy, starting at the top with the central banks, where money is literally created out of nothing. Then the commercial banking system and the capital market loan this money in forms of credits to corporates, privates, and states, and ends with the production of goods and services. The entire sum, called the global domestic product, GDP, is approximately 75 to 80 trillion US dollars every year. And at the end of that pipeline, we as a world community decided to spend a small amount of money on such social and ecological projects. Has this procedure, has this mechanism ever worked in history? Historically, the world community decided to spend 0.7% of this global domestic product, which is roughly $500 billion on such projects. But besides the Scandinavian countries, the vast majority never attained the 0.7%. Just think, even if all nations attained 0.7%, the amount of money is realistically not enough to finance and fund our future. We got to get the figures right. We're talking about 5-10 times more in order to challenge our future. We're talking about 5 trillion out of the 80 trillion of our global domestic product in order to properly finance our future. Withdrawing this amount of money, withdrawing the 5 trillion out of the 80 trillion would cause a collapse of the world economy. Where does the money come from? I think it's an heroic assumption that this mechanism of redistributing money would ever meet in scale and speed the requirements to fund or finance our future. Could it be that we have the wrong solutions for the real problems? I think in order to find out the real solutions for the real problems, there's one aspect I want you to remember here. Money is not a tangible thing. Money is not a natural law. Money is a convention, like a marriage contract, a club rule, a legal contract, which can be changed and adapted according to the global needs. So can we think differently about this whole challenge? I want you to hold your skepticism for one moment. You know, what if the central banks would create the additional 5 trillion US dollars in an electronic format only through a blockchain technology? What if these additional funds would be earmarked and dedicated for sustainability development goals only in the first place? And what if these funds ran through completely different channels than the one we're used to? We would end up with a complementary, optional currency system running in parallel to the conventional system, generating the 5 trillion the world desperately needs. Is there any scientific evidence for that? Research on optional parallel currency system has shown over a dozen of positive effects. You know, you could use these earmarked additional liquidity, dedicated funds, in order to target millions and millions of African citizens through the blockchain technology through their cell phone network. We could use the same mechanism for Indian citizens addressing the microcredit banking system. Any dollar spent through this mechanism will alleviate, if not eliminate, poverty in less than 1 year. I would like to repeat that sentence. Any dollar spent through this mechanism would alleviate, if not eliminate, poverty in less than a year. It would prevent us from additional fraud and corruption, as each transaction is transparent and can be disclosed. Just think, such a parallel currency system in place, eligible to file taxes, would allow communal offices eventually to build up their infrastructure, preschooling, kindergarten, schooling, universities, communal hospitals, libraries, streets, bridges. The 1.5 million non-governmental organizations would eventually get the money to do their job. We could enhance education, accessing healthcare that would otherwise never happen. We would tap into untapped potentials of millions of humans without a job, unleashing the creativity of billions of citizens on this planet. Would this mechanism hurt or harm the conventional economy? The opposite is true. Corporate and state planning and production, even the price level, would become more robust and resilient, gaining a long-term vision. In fact, a parallel currency system would stabilize the booms and busts of the conventional system. It is this pre-distributive design rather than redistributive design that can shift, I would even say transform, our entire society into the right direction. What's missing? What's missing? You know, what's missing? We have to change our mindset. We're used to think serial, sequential, linear, the way we're used to. We should start to think in parallel. And our brain and our mind is capable to do so. It's like having a bike with two wheels. We need a currency system with two branches, a conventional and a complementary one. Both designed for different purposes, but both intertwined at the end. If there was a single most important factor to change the world, it would be this mechanism as the game changer. We could get that started in less than 6 months if the 6 largest central banks are prepared to implement a parallel currency system. I think this would be fair and fast, inexpensive and innovative. It would be robust and resilient. It would be sound and sustainable. And it would be transparent and transformative. Redesigning the financial system does not solve all our problems. But all our problems are much more easily addressed through redesigning the financial system. This is the way towards more humanity, more peace, more wealth, more global partnership, and a greener planet. And this is the mechanism to embrace the future. Thank you very much.